Okay, good morning. First video here for trying to do walkthrough videos on shop drawings, so bear with me. First time using this software. So the first thing that you need to know about shop drawings is, well, quite simply, it's not just drawing something on a piece of paper. It's kind of like a hybrid job. And what I mean by that is, typically you would say, oh, it's drawing, shop drawings. So, I'm gonna go open AutoCAD and I'm just gonna start drawing stuff. But really, it's not that clean cut and easy. And the reason why is because there's a lot of problem solving that goes into, drawing your dimensions, drawing your profiles, putting installation details if necessary, etc., depending on what the architect wants. Now, for the most part, on most of our projects, shop drawings are pretty easy, at least in my mind's eye they are. And you'll get the hang of it. But for example, this particular piece here that you're seeing, it might not be easy for you, obviously. This is something that you might need some help with. But if you have the basics down and you work on simple stuff, then stuff like this later will be easy. So let's go ahead and dig into the process. So as I said, it's kind of like a hybrid process. It's not just about opening AutoCAD and starting to draw. The first thing that you need to do is you need to go gather your information, what it is that you are going to be drawing. And what I mean by that is getting on the server. Here are the bid invitation sheets. So we're going to open that up and we're going to find the job. We're going to be working on a job today that is called, what is this job called? This job is called Grand Living at Riverstone. Okay, so this is the folder, Innovative Cast Stone. It's right here on the desktop. We're going to go ahead and type in Grand Living, just Grand. Okay, that did not work. That's strange. Okay. V-I-N-G, Grand Living, that is very strange. Okay, I was expecting it to be in here. Grand Living. Okay, let me pause and get back to you in just a moment. Okay, and we're back. Sometimes you will find that it's going to be very rare now. This was an older job, so it wasn't in the correct location. But I fixed that. So anyways, you're going to go to the ICS bid folder here, spreadsheets, and we're going to go ahead and type in Grand again. It's already there. So Grand, there you go. Grand Living at Riverstone, Cast Stone, right? So the first thing is you just want to go ahead and get everything on your computer. So you're not constantly flipping back and forth between the server and your computer and or vice versa. So let's go ahead and copy that. We go ahead and close that box, minimize the server. We're going to go ahead and paste this to the desktop. So now you have the spreadsheet, which should have all of the original quantities. There's also a process of copying over the estimation file from PlanSwift, and I will show you how to do that now, although I've already done that, but I'll do it again. Give me just a second. So we're going to go back to the server and we're going to open PlanSwift. Okay, and we're going to open, and basically the same thing. We're going to go ahead and type in Grand Living at Riverstone Cast Stone Veneer Project. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open that project. It's going to take a minute. Okay, now that the project is open, you're going to want to copy this basically the same way. So you're going to go to Tools, and you're going to go to Zip Swift Job. You're going to click on Zip, and desktop, leave the name the same. That way it's easy to find. And you click on save. And it will take a moment, depending on the size of the job, it will take a moment to zip it up and put it on the desktop. And sorry about that. And you'll know when it's done being frozen, because that's what PlanSwift likes to do. Okay, all right. So now that that's done copying, I mean, there's no indication, right? So minimize, you'll see it here on the desktop. It looks exactly like the PlanSwift icon down here, so don't be confused. That's the name of the job. So now you're going to basically copy this over to your computer, just like you did the spreadsheet. Sorry. Copy, minimize the server. I'm going to go ahead and paste it. All right, and this is going to go ahead and copy over to your desktop. Have to give that a minute to finish copying because it's a pretty large file. I say it's large, but not really. All right, now that that's done copying over, the icon will appear on your desktop. So now we have the spreadsheet, we have the job or the plans. So the next step is going to be opening your copy of PlanSwift that you'll have installed on your computer. And it'll probably open with this launch sheet right here, okay? It's not going to open with the job already open. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing. This is on your computer now, okay? So you're going to go to Tools, you're going to go to Unzip Swift Job. And you're going to find that file that you put on your desktop, that you copied to your desktop. You're going to click Open. That's going to unzip it and load it into PlanSwift, all right? And that way, from now on, it's literally going to be permanently loaded into your database. So when you click on Open, it's going to be listed here in the list of jobs locally on your computer. All right, so what's the first step? Now you have the plans open. You're looking at a bunch of stuff that you don't necessarily understand. You have the spreadsheet that you have not looked at. So let's go ahead and minimize PlanSwift. Let's go ahead and open the spreadsheet. All right, let me drag this over here. All right, so this is the spreadsheet. This is the Castone that I'm going to go ahead and hide. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and hide everything else because this is the only tab that you need to look at. Castone version 2. Apparently we had a few bids and maybe something changed. Very small change. Let's see, 33. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide all these other tabs. We don't need to see them. Hide, 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 hide. Excuse me. Hide, hide, hide. Okay. Now you don't necessarily have to hide them or do anything. I just do that so I don't get distracted. So what you're looking at here is what we need to provide the client. This is a list of the materials that we quoted to the client that we need to provide to them. Castone window seal, CSTN1A, just a bunch of abbreviations, okay? So hopefully if it's all been done properly by our estimating team, Cheyenne and Hawk and Fernando, these labels and abbreviations and quantities should match up with what we have in PlanSwift. So let's go over to PlanSwift. Let's go ahead and minimize this, leave it open. Let's go ahead and go over to PlanSwift. What you want to do here is you want to click on estimating. This is a list of the takeoff. Yeah, it seems pretty easy, right? Pretty easy and straightforward. So this is a list of everything that we did a takeoff on, or rather Cheyenne did a takeoff on. The mock-up turnkey wall, you don't need to look at this. So there's probably going to be some stuff on jobs that you don't necessarily need to look at. This in particular, you don't need to look at. This is the list of material. Now, does it match up with the labels that we have in the spreadsheet? Not sure yet, but we can go back and look at that in a minute. So let's go back to Home, the Home tab up here. This is the elevation view of this project, and there's several elevations. Okay, there's several elevations on this project, because if we go over here and we look at, for example, the architectural site plan. Okay, sorry about that. Essentially, let's go ahead and turn these off. You can turn markers and markups off individually, one by going over here to the left hand side, selecting the page that you're on. You can just click the little light bulbs, and when they're not yellow, that's basically turning them off. You see that we turned off that stuff there. It's kind of distracting. It's important to see that stuff, because that's how you know, hey, that's some cast stone that we need to draw some details on. But this is the building, essentially, that we are trying to draw. Okay, not the entire building, but the cast stone details that need to be fabricated for the building. This is the complete site view, which is showing you a little, kind of like a little map of where the building goes and the land boundaries, right? And this is an important view, because sometimes there's stuff that you're going to see on this view that you're not going to see anywhere else, such as dumpster, trash enclosures and things like that, monument signs. So if like for example, you see this here, right? That's where Cheyenne did his takeoff for, it looks like he's calling it Fancy Trim, CSTN1C. You can see when you turn it on and off, right? And then you have some trash enclosure caps. You can see when you turn that on and off as well. Okay, it looks kind of globby when you zoom out, but that's kind of the point, I suppose, is to get your attention. So we'll come back to that, but let's go to the level 1 floor plan. And I admit sometimes these guys can be messy on their takeoffs, but that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to know what we're doing when we're generating shop drawings. That's the only way that we can really communicate to our guys and the general contractor and or subcontractors what it is exactly that we're going to fabricate and how we are going to fabricate it. So this is the first floor plan. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just turn everything off by clicking this right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off all the dimension lines too by clicking that. You can always turn things back on by clicking on these icons over here. I hope you can see my mouse pointer. It's on the left hand side in the plan view. So you see by clicking specific things, for example, the takeoff data right here, you can turn them all on and off at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and turn everything off, even the highlights and the colors, just so that we don't get confused. The highlights and the colors can be very helpful though, especially the way Cheyenne takes off his plans. Sometimes we can appreciate that. And he color codes everything. So for example, this color and this color he's going to have these same colors on the elevation sheets to indicate that's what you're looking at. So it is helpful. So for example, on this particular elevation, or rather this view, so this is the floor plan. Let's start on an easy elevation, maybe perhaps. Let's look for an easy elevation. Let's just this elevation here, nice flat elevation, not too many dips or roller coaster rides. So the way that you find this elevation is by looking at these details, looking at these indication arrows. So essentially what that means is you're going to have to do a little bit of searching, but if if you zoom in, so they're saying A300 detail 5. So page A300 detail 5 should be looking at the building this way, but there's also another detail here called A300C detail 1. So you kind of gotta have an imagination. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and right click. We're gonna go ahead and open a new tab. We're gonna select that tab. It opens up as just a blank gray space. So let's look for these pages. A300C detail 1. So let's go to our blank page. Let's go over here. Let's look for A300C. Okay, see right here, A300C. You can also type it right here in the search bar if you'd like. So A300C, we're going to click on that. Okay, so what are we looking at here? It looks like he highlighted this and he highlighted this. So there's a few highlights here. Let's go back. All right, so A300C detail 1, which is this detail right here, he has this whole elevation highlighted green, supposedly. So you go back to this elevation. So this is the elevation that's highlighted that same shade of green. So technically, what we should be looking at right here, see this, detail 1, it's sheet A300C, detail 1, and it's been highlighted the same color. We go back to the floor plan, A300C, detail 1, and the arrow is pointing this way. That indicates that we should be looking at the correct elevation. Now, why is there another detail here? I don't know. Let's figure that out. Let's go to right click, new tab. Let's go to sheet A300, detail 5. Sheet A300, detail 5. Okay. Detail 5. All right. So, what this page is an overall elevation view. Now, the reason why Cheyenne didn't do any of his takeoff here on these pages is because it's just really, really, really small, and you would have a really hard time doing an accurate takeoff here. Okay, so that's the reason why they have two different details. But let's look at this again. So A300 detail 5. Let's look at this. Let's look at it carefully. Let's see if it looks the same as the zoomed in detail that Cheyenne did his takeoff on. Okay, got some balconies over here. Yeah, this section over here. Okay, balconies over here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. No. So it is, if you'll see some differences here, right? You see this wall, see these balconies here. You see this wall behind the balconies. It's a little bit different. So what we're looking at here, we see the balconies, right? We go back here, we see these balconies, but there's another wall behind that. So we're looking at the balconies. Let's go back to the floor plan. Well, what we aren't seeing, if I'm not mistaken, on this view right here, what we're not seeing is this bump out right here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're not seeing this small bump out. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just the way that I'm interpreting it. That we're not seeing this part of the small bump out. Hold on, I'm going to pause it. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm going to pause it for just a moment. Okay, so without trying to get into a whole lot of details and get really, really sticky, we're just going to go ahead and begin with the shop drawing process. All right, we're going to have to trust in the estimation process ourselves. So by going to the estimating tab, we know what we need to draw, more or less, right? We are going to have to do a little bit of legwork. Let's go to our home tab. We're gonna go ahead and start on this elevation. Now we know, oh Lord, we know that we're gonna have to do a bunch of drawings. Like these are gonna be some pretty complicated ones. Looks like we have our base stone. We have our fancy trim stone. So we have on the bottom and then we have on the top. We have some pilaster caps and we have some railing cap. I don't know why Cheyenne did. This is one of the things that I'm kind of trying to warn you about, is that the railing cap, I don't know why Cheyenne literally he took it off here and here. And as far as I can tell, oh, and I think maybe over here and over here, let me double check that. Yeah, I mean, when you turn it on, you can see. I don't know why he did that. That is wrong. That the railing cap should have been on perhaps the second floor takeoff, because as far as I can tell, that may be where the railing is located at. We'll have to circle back around to the railing cap and figure out what's going on there, but we'll go back just to the standard stuff. So what I'm going to start with is we're going to go to the elevations, which was A305, right? A305. I'm sorry, that was the overall. We don't want A305. It was A300C detail 1, because it appears, yes, right here. It appears that this is where the majority of Cheyenne's takeoff information was done, on the elevations themselves. So let's do a little bit of legwork here. This is actually a pretty easy job, even though it looks complicated. It's actually pretty easy. So cast stone water table 1A. Okay, cool beans. So the red is this particular water table 1A, 5 5/8 by 4 5/8. The green is our typical cast stone window seal. So what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to do something pretty simple. It appears that we have the same condition here on this side that we do on this side. And if you go back, you can see the caps and some base here, the base, and then the fancy trim up here. That's that stuff on the floor plan that I was telling you that we would need to draw. This stuff here. So we got it here, the caps, and we got it here, and that's fine. We'll come back to that. Let's go ahead and start our typical water table window seal. Now, hold on, let me get my dog to be quiet. Okay. So, bear with me here. What we're going to do is we're going to go find this profile. And the way to find the profile is in the wall cut views. Okay. So, how do we find the wall cut views, you ask? Well, every plan is unique. And unfortunately, this plan is no different. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to find a cut of what we're looking for. And what I mean by cut is like this is a cut right here where it has the arrow, but it also has a line drawn through it, and the line goes all the way through. Okay, that's called a building section view. This is also one up here. You see that where it has the arrow and then it has a line that's drawn all the way through. Those are called building section views. Now, it's very unfortunate that this set of plans really sucks and it doesn't have a lot of detail on where to find stuff. So I'm going to pause it for a second and then I'm going to do some investigative work and figure out where this detail is at. Hold on. Okay, so after a lot of research, I was able to find some details. Now, this particular set of plans is probably not the best set of plans to start you with, considering that these plans are actually, they're not complicated, but they're just missing a lot of details. Anyways, long story short, I was able to find these details in some generated shop drawings by a different company. Long story, I won't get into that. So essentially what we have here, we have the two different profiles. We have the typical window seal profile, and then we have the typical transition profile. At least this is what I was able to find. So we're going to go ahead and minimize that, and we're going to compare that. So what we're looking at is the typical window seal profile and the typical transition profile, okay? Now there's also going to be one other profile, at least as far as I can tell, and that's going to be the profile between the stone, where you have stone below and stone above. The only two details that I was able to find so far are going to be the details that I just showed you, which are these, where you have stone below but stucco above, and then the typical window seal. So we've still got to do a little bit of digging for the missing profile, but we'll dig into that in a few moments. But you can also see where Cheyenne, our estimator, is still calling this the same profile, which I'm not sure if that's actually correct. More than likely it's not, because if you go back to the profile, you're not going to be able to stack more stone on top of it because of the slope. So that profile is going to have to change somehow. So we'll look into that in a moment. But let's start with something simple on these plans. Let's start with the windows. And it's exactly that, just the windows. Let's just focus on the windows and focus on the transition water table that we have here, where you have stucco above it. Okay, it's probably going to be the easiest thing that I'm going to be able to show you today. So we can see here that we're on the exterior elevations. Let's just start with the first exterior elevation that we have. I mean, really, you could probably even go to the overall exterior elevations that we didn't want to go to if they're marked. And no, they're not marked. So that scratches that idea. And what I mean by marked is this. So let's go to the exterior elevation, the first page that we show here. Remember, Cheyenne has everything color coded, right? So you see this blue here and that brown here. This is the same elevation. If we go to the elevations, or rather the floor plan, let's see, architectural floor plan, you'll see this elevation here is, he's got it coded with two separate colors because it's so big it doesn't fit in one detail. But we're looking at A300A detail 3, right? 3 and 2. So they split it up. This is 3, this is 2. And the reason why they did that is just because it's too big to fit on one page, right? Or at least that's what we would imagine. So let's go back to the exterior elevation. This is the same elevation. You're just looking at a split of it. So if you were to take this and move it down here, it'd be one continuous building. I don't know how to do that on the page here to give you an example, but essentially that's what you're looking at. Okay, it's just one continuous. So you start here on the edge of the building, you're going down, you're looking. Oh, what happened? It cuts off midway through a window. Well, where does that window continue? It continues over here. You see that? So it's just one long continuous building. All right, so let's start with the windows. Easy peasy. And this water table here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our takeoff tool. Okay, and we're going to start counting these windows. Cheyenne counted them. Our estimator just gave a one continuous lineal footage. So if you go to the estimating tab and you look at the right here, what is it? Linear trash enclosure, water table, and window seal. It's all, he didn't break it out by window. It's one continuous. That's what it is. It's 441 lineal feet, and then on the water table you have 375 lineal feet. Which is fine for estimating purposes, but it doesn't serve our purpose for shop drawings. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to count these windows up. So W5, W8, looks like we have, typical windows here, W5, W8, all right. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to our count tool, new count. And we're going to call this W5. Oops, W5. And we are going to leave the shape, let's change it to a square. You can put triangle, you have options, It's a window, so I leave it square. Color, you have options. Now, folder. This is important. I always change the folder name, and I'll show you why in a minute. So currently the default folder was Mockup Turnkey. We're going to change that to Castone Drawings. Okay. We're going to click OK. All right. Now this tool is ready to use. You click W5. So essentially, I'm sorry for Rosie. Let me hold on. Okay. So essentially you're going to go through and you're going to click all the W5s. And it appears that there's only 2 W5s here. Oops, sorry. And I don't see any other W5s. All right, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. So we'll hit escape and we'll make a new window. All right, same thing. Count, new count. We're going to call this W5. I'm sorry, not W5, W8. You can change it to a circle, or I just leave them all the same. Square, okay, you don't have to worry about that. Scaled, I'll show you what that means later, but it doesn't serve a purpose for now. The color is going to automatically change. I would leave it to whatever it automatically changes to, okay? And the folder is going to default to whatever you set up last time, so that's fine. Typically, all you have to do is change the name and change the shape to whatever you want. Like I said, windows makes sense to leave them as square. Click OK. Now we're going to click all the W8s. It looks like we have a few more W8s than we did the other ones. Looks to me like this is also a W8. It's just not marked with a W8. So you have to be careful about that. Sometimes the architect will accidentally skip over some stuff. But so that's an example. It's a W8, or at least it looks like one to me. It looks identical. It's just not labeled. So it's your responsibility to click it and make sure we're counting it. Okay. Now, here's a W8, but Cheyenne didn't take any cast stone off. And there's no stone on this wall. So what do we do here? We do nothing. If it's not taken off, there's no windows. You know, you can clearly see where he highlighted, you know, the takeoff tool, and he took cast stone, and you can see where it looks like it would be cast stone. These windows are not. Okay, so we skip over these. We're only counting the windows that we need to draw cast stone for. All right. Same thing with these W7s and W2s and whatever else. All of this, nothing else is highlighted, so we're good. Right. Now, don't worry about, you know, like I said, we're focusing on the windows right now. What you're seeing here, these are those caps or coping on the balconies that I told you we're going to have to skip over for now because we need some more definitive measurements. Let's go up here. Looks like we still need to get some W8s. So what we can do, you already started W8s, but you click, and you hit escape. Now what do? Oh crap, I need to continue counting W8s. How do I do that? Well, there's a couple of options. You can either click on the W8 and then you can just select it, click on it once, and then you can click N on your keyboard. And that will start the tool the same count that you were using previously, the one that you selected. So what did we do? We selected W8. All right, so we want to come and count these W8s that we missed. Okay, looks like we've counted everything. All right, now we can hit escape. So we have W5s, we have W8s. Looks like we got that. Now it looks like we have some different types of windows here. Looks like we have some W7s. So let's go ahead and create another one. I'm going to go to count, and we're going to call these W7. Change it to square. This is default. Now, one thing that I didn't think about, sometimes this will happen to you too. You're calling stuff W7, but then later in the list, you look at your list and you're not going, what is a W7? So we've already got it broken down into a folder called Cast Stone Drawings. We could go even further and put it in another subfolder and call that cast stone window surrounds or cast stone window seals. In this case, I'd probably just say W7 window. So we probably need to add that to our description for the other windows as well. And that way we know what we're counting exactly. We go, oh, that's a window. So W7 window, cast stone drawings. Okay, so we're going to count W7, 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 W7. And that looks like it's all the W7s. So now we're going to go to, we're going to make another one. Count. Okay, this is called W4. Window. Click OK. W4, 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 W4. Again, looks like we have more W4s here, but this is not cast stone. Cheyenne doesn't have it highlighted, so without doing more investigation, you probably could, you could find that out on your own, but we have to have faith in our estimators too. If they didn't take it off, well, then it's technically not there. All right, so it looks like we've counted all of our windows here with the exception of something that's going on here. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, why he has that counted as a window when this is more of like a balcony type condition. We'll have to come back to that. For now, we're just focusing on the windows, okay? One thing at a time. Okay, and remember, this is just one elevation. So this is what, A300A, exterior elevations. Now let's go to the next elevation. Let's go ahead and change the name on these. Double click, window, W8 window, okay? Go ahead and change that as well. Okay, all right. Now, we'll go to the next elevation. All right, looks like we got a lot of action going on here too. Not a whole lot of action with windows though. Looks like we have this stuff here, but we'll come back to that. So base on the bottom and then the fancy capital on the top. We'll come back to that. One thing at a time, one step at a time. Looks to me like there's only, literally on this particular elevation, there's only one window. And then we go to these windows here and a couple windows here. So this is what we'll do here. Now, remember what I told you. We already did a piece count on the other elevation called W8. You don't want to start a new one, by creating count. You don't want to create a new one. You want to continue using the old one that you already started. And the way you do that is you have two options. You can either find it over here on the left-hand side. This is a different sheet. This is the sheet that we were looking at previously. We're currently on this sheet. This is the sheet we were looking at. So you can click on it. For example, window W8. See that green dot that appears? When you hover over it, you see that green dot that appears? You can click that green dot and then come back over here and continue using it. It's kind of convenient. It's kind of convenient. All right, so W8, well, it looks like that's the only W8 window on this entire elevation. Cool. Cool beans. All right, and then it looks like we have W4s and W7s. So same thing. Let's hit escape. Let's hover over here on the W7s and then click on the little green dot once and it starts that tool. So what did we click on? W7s, okay. W7, 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 W7. Let's go ahead and count the rest of our W7s. W7, W7, okay. Same thing, go ahead and go back and count our W8s. W8, W8, okay. Now we have W4s, and hit escape. Okay, window W4. Okay. Okay, so looks like we missed a couple here. W4. W4. hit escape, W5, W5. Okay, so it appears that we have all of our windows counted now on this particular elevation, which is good. All right, let's go to the next elevation. Okay, same thing. Ooh, it looks like we have a new window type here. Window type W3 and W6. W3, W6 are labeled differently because they're different size for the architect. It looks like the W6 is taller than the W3, but it doesn't affect us because it looks to be the same width. Now you can always go to the window schedule to verify the dimensions on the windows. That's always a good thing to do. Or, you know, this is just something that you can do. Again, don't always have confidence in the measuring tools. It's a good thing to go to the details. There's a sheet called Window Details, Windows and Doors, and you'll be able to look at all the windows by name. But just for quick measurement verification purposes, we're going to verify my theory. We're going to click on the dimension tool. And we're going to click on, we're going to just kind of measure the window. So this window is what? Like 2'6", give or take? Okay, 2'6". Let's go ahead and do the same thing here. Yeah, 2'6", give or take. Yeah, looks to me, just eyeballing it even without using the tool, I could have told you they're the same width. They are, you know, this is definitely taller, but because we only have a window seal, it doesn't affect us. The stone that we need to make for this is all going to be the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a markup. We're going to create a count tool, new count. We're going to call this W3 and W6. Okay. It's already there. Okay. We're going to go ahead and count these W3, W6s. Let's go ahead and zoom out, make sure there's no more of those. Yeah, we got some more right here. All right. Let's go and count our big windows now. W5s, W8s. W5 and W8. You know, one thing that just completely slipped my mind, it looks like the W5s and the W8s are also the same size, even though we were counting them as different windows on the other elevation. Let's go back to the other elevation. Yeah, W5, let's see, where's W5? So yeah, W5 and W8. It also looks like W4 and W7 are the same. We'll look at that just using the measuring tool. 5, 10. No. So it appears that the W4 is 5 foot. Yeah, they're roughly the same. So the W4 and the W7 are roughly the same. I think the same thing exists, the same condition exists with the W5 and the W8. They're 7'6" wide from here to here, and it appears that that line travels up if you look at it. So from there to there, they are 7'6". So I mean, we can adjust that later. Now that we're looking at that, so the W5 and W8 are the same. I'm going to take some notes here on a piece of paper, old school. So it appears that W5 and W8 are the same. Okay. It appears W4 and W7 are also the same. W4 and W7 are also the same. Okay. Just for my notations. And we said W5, so we already said W5, W8s are the same. W4, W7s are the same. All right, we also said, let's go back to the other sheet now. Okay, so W8 and W5, okay. W8, W5, they are the same. We already said W3s and W6s are the same. So W3 and W6 are the same. All right. Okay, whatever it is that we were doing here, I think we were just making a notation of the windows that were all the same. So we have W3s and W6s and blah, 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 and so forth and so forth. Let's go ahead and finish counting these off. W5s. Nothing here that we need to worry about right now. All right, W8s. W8s. Okay. All right, looks like we have everything covered on these pages here. Let's go ahead and jump to the next page. Exterior elevations. Okay, W5s. Just go ahead and find a W5 here. Oh, we have W4. This is a tricky one because of the water table here. So we're gonna have to come back to that and look at it. Well, we are selecting W5s. That's pretty much it. I'm a little confused. Okay, so this right here, Cheyenne did not do any takeoffs here because what you're looking at is just a duplicate of this elevation. If you look at the windows, you look here, there's a hidden window behind this little outbuilding here. And that's essentially what they did here on this elevation, is that they cut that out of the way so that you could get a full view of this. So we're not going to touch this over here. This is not important. So it looks like we have some W8s. W8. W8. Remember, we're not doing this because he didn't have anything selected here. W7. All right, let's take a look at this here. I'm wondering why he has a different profile here. He called that railing for some reason, but I don't believe that that is railing. I think he used the wrong thing here. I think this is going to be the water table. It's 1H. Oh, maybe not. See the call out here. They're calling this 1A. But yet they're calling this 1H. So I'm gonna have to look at that. That could be the architect. You know, that could be the architect not calling this out the right way, which I'm thinking that's what's happening here, because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like a balcony to me. So to be honest with you, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this from the railing to standard coping and window seal. Window seal.
My sister and mommy as well.
All right. Okay, now that I've corrected this here, we're going to go ahead and count the windows. Looks like we have W4s here. Okay, W4s. Okay, I believe that we've counted everything. Now we have all of this stuff here, but let's not forget we're not getting into that right now. Okay, next elevation. Actually, I think this is the last elevation. We go to the next page, we have some 3D views here. But that's pretty much it as far as windows go, which is great. Okay, so we've come to the conclusion that W5s and W8s are the same, W4s and W7s are the same, W3s and W6 are the same. So let's go ahead and go to our estimating tab. As you can see, this is the original takeoff data that Cheyenne has, which is fine. You know, we're not really going to look at these yet, but let's go to our cast stone shop drawing folder that we set up, and here are all of our windows that we just counted. Okay, so we're saying that the W5 and W8 are one and the same. So those are together, that's good. The W4 and the W7 are one and the same, and those are together, they are grouped. Okay, that's good. And then the W3 and W6 are the same. Okay, so what's our next step? Well, so what we need to do is we need to go and find our window detail sheet, the one that I told you about. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our home tab and see if it's properly labeled. We can search for it. Window, okay. New drawings. Obviously, it looks like we had some old drawings. We're not going to use those. Exterior elevations, window. Here we go. Door and window type and schedules. So when we click on that, this is the sheet that I was telling you about. This is the sheet that's going to give us a full list, or it should, of all of our window types. Okay. So window schedules, window markings, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then you can also get more information when it's at note ASF3, 5A, 5B on common area door schedule. So, you know, sometimes plans can be very daunting and confusing, but for the most part, if we know what we're looking for, it should not be. So we are looking for our window types, right? So we're looking for W5. Here we go, W5. And we're also looking for W8. Okay, so W5, W8, if you look here, 7'6", 7'6". It's the same measurement for us. It's a different measurement on the height, yes, but because we're only doing the window seal, we don't have to worry about the height. All we have to worry about is this measurement here. See the cast stone below it? Okay, so essentially we just verified that our windows are 7'6". So the W5s and the W8s, W5, W8, those windows are 7'6" wide. However, you see that the cast stone comes out, right? The way they have it drawn, the cast stone comes out. Let's look at the elevations. Let's go up to the elevations again. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to find the elevations again. Let's create a new tab just so that we don't move stuff around. All right, let's go to this. All right, so let's look at our typical W8. Yeah, and it looks to be the same. It looks to be the same to me, where you have the cast stone, it kind of overhangs a little bit. It's hard to tell on these windows where, you know, there's no end or beginning to the cast stone. But we're just going to follow the same guidelines that we're going to do on these. So it looks the same to me. We can, if you want, you can measure from here, or you can go back to the door and window types and measure from here. There are no given dimensions, but let's say W5. Let's zoom in here. I don't know if there's a scale. Let's see if there's a scale. Okay, so it appears that there's no scale on this sheet, so we have two options. If we want to measure this, measure the distance of the overhang, we're going to have to scale it. Okay, to do that, you would click on scale. You're going to say 7 foot 6 inches, because that's what we're trying to match, right? 7 foot 6, 7 foot 6. Now we're going to click on OK, and we're going to zoom in, and we're going to do this as carefully as we can. You see where my crosshairs are at? It's in the middle of the line. It's not on the beginning of the line or the end of the line. It's in the middle of the line. Click, zoom out, scroll over, do the same thing, click. All right, so what we just did is set the scale for the computer. So now we can measure and our measurements are going to be perfect. Okay. So what are we going to do here? Well, we're just going to look at this real quick. I'm going to go, okay, well, if the window is from frame to frame is 7 foot 6, from frame to the edge of the cast stone, it looks like it comes out an additional 4 inches. So it looks to me like there's a 4-inch overhang on all the windows. Okay, so what would we do to draw those windows? Well, first of all, before we move off of this page, let's go ahead and get the dimensions of all the other windows. W4 and W7, 5-foot windows. Okay, so those are 5 foot wide. Okay, now let's get W3 and W6. W3s, W6, they're both 2 foot 6 windows. 2 foot 6 windows. Okay. All right. 2 foot 6. Now we have all of our dimensions. We know that there's a 4-inch overhang on either side. You have taken notes on a piece of paper. 4-inch overhang. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and you can leave this tab open if you want. It's just a tab. Let's just go ahead and zoom out here. So, what are we doing here? We are doing, all right, so again, I was able to find these details in some of the other sheets as well. 5.5, you know, but again, sometimes it's really hard, but this is what we're gonna do, okay? We're gonna go back to the drawings that I was able to locate that have already been approved by this other manufacturer. And it looks pretty much, yeah, it looks to me to be the same. 7 3/4. Okay, 7 3/4. Yeah, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. We have the two profiles here. So we have our window seal profile. And yeah, we already verified that there's a 4-inch overhang. So perfect. So essentially what we're going to do, I don't know why they have the W4s. Anyways, forget that. Pausing the video a minute to gather my thoughts, sorry. Okay, back in action. All right, so remember what I was telling you, that the profiles for the cast stone, typically you're always going to find a detail sheet for the profiles that need to match the takeoff. Now, doing a little more digging after I had my lunch here, I was able to find this sheet. Now, again, this sheet's not always going to be obvious. It's not always going to be called out. But nonetheless, for the most part, this sheet is typically always available, especially in the bigger size jobs. So as you can tell, I mean, it's just exterior details. I mean, that's pretty much it. But when you zoom in on this page, you can see that there's a lot of profiles here, and it says cast stone profiles. So these are all the different type of profiles for this particular project. But remember, to try to keep this video as short as possible, I'm trying to keep these videos to just under an hour or an hour, more or less. So we're going to focus on the windows like we've been doing. The first thing we're going to do is, well, first of all, I'm going to try something real quick. Okay, Cheyenne had already bookmarked this page, which is great. I wish I would have looked at the bookmarks first, but it also appears that he created a new sheet, or these are in the old drawings. So he did not re-bookmark the new sheet. This is the new sheet in the new set of drawings. If you scroll up here, remember we've been working in the new drawing folder, not the old drawings. So this particular sheet, A504, is a new sheet, and we always need to make sure we're working from the newest sheet. So let's go ahead and delete that. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. Oh no. I'm not, I think I broke it. Hold on. No. A504, let's see, 504. No, they're still here. Okay. New drawings. Exterior, yeah. So the new drawings is what we want to be working from. There's several copies of the same sheet. I don't know why. But we always want to make sure we're working from the newest set. And you can do that by zooming in here, issue record, right? So technically this would be the newest one, 527. Let's verify the other ones. Now this one's also technically the same one, but they have it clouded anyways. Long story short, let's go ahead and add in a bookmark to this page. So, and we do that by just being on the page, and then we will click down here, new bookmark, and we're going to call this cast stone profiles. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and click on OK. All right, so that puts a shortcut and or bookmark to that sheet whenever you want to go to it, and that's a good way to bookmark and or save your pages, the important ones, and that way you can always get to them without a bunch of drama. So we're concentrating on window seals. We've done a count of all of our windows, W5s, W8s, W7s, W4s, W3s, and W6s. So we have a count. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at our profile here. Looks like the cast stone window seals at stone transition. We haven't got there yet. We're doing windows right now. Here we go. CSTN1A, cast stone window seal. Okay. Now, remember what I told you about the markings? CSTN-1A window seal. So Cheyenne labeled them. He labeled them per what's in the detail. CSTN-1A window seal. okay, which is good because that means we know where that piece goes. Okay, so let's get to drawing. Now that we've found this piece, we know what we need to draw, we did a takeoff, let's go ahead and get to drawing. So unfortunately I don't know how to record both screens at the same time. I don't even know if that's possible. But I just want you to take a mental picture of this. You have options. You can screenshot it, put it up on your second monitor. In this case, I'm going to put it up on my second monitor so I have it available to me, okay? So I'm going to take this and I'll put it on my second monitor. Don't worry about this right now. This is, these are drawings that were made by another company. Like I said, don't worry about this. I was just using them for a little bit of a reference. But you're not going to have drawings like this on most jobs. Most of the jobs that you're going to be generating shop drawings from are going to be directly from the plan set that we're viewing right now. Okay, now 7 3/4. I just want to make sure. Okay, so let me bring Plan Swift back. So it looks like they made some changes. And I say that because if we go to 5/27/2020 Bulletin 1, this is the CD Construction Drawing Set Bulletin 3. It appears that the profile page does not match what they have drawn here for the window seal. So it's important, let's just search. This is A507. And I don't know, this is an RFI. I don't know why Cheyenne didn't relabel all of this, but apparently they sent him some drawings that were extra or something. I'm not sure. Let's do a little bit of legwork here because, and I know this isn't the easiest set of drawings to start with, but we got to start somewhere, right? This is not typical. This is a big job. Typical shop drawings are going to be easy peasy, water tables, things like that. So I've noticed a problem here, and the problem that I noticed was that if you go to the profile page that we just looked at, which is supposedly the newest set, they're saying that the window seal is 9 5/8. And we wouldn't, there's nothing that we can really. Here's the problem. This job was started by another company or the shop drawings, and they've already gone through a process. Long story short, apparently the window seal got modified. And that's what you were seeing here, is that the cast stone window seal, this is the profile that was actually approved. So it's actually, looking at the measurements, it's only 7 3/4 with 2 1/8 at the top versus what was originally in the original set of plans, which is like 9 inches and whatever we just looked at. So without trying to make it too complicated, trust me, I'm not trying to make it complicated, but we can also compare. Let's see, and again, I'm in the old stinking drawings. I don't want to be in the old stinking drawings. I want to be in the new drawings. 9 5/8. Boo-hoo. 504. And it appears that in all of these sheets, it's still at 9 5/8. Interesting. Okay, we just have to be careful with it. So apparently it's still drawn at this 9 5/8. The question was never asked by us. But again, Okay, anyway, so I found this detail on A507, and this is the detail that was previously approved. So we're just going to proceed with this detail, okay? Again, try not to be complicated. Let's just go ahead and proceed with what we know we need to draw, which is the window seals, okay? So I'm going to move Plan Swift off, and we're going to bring up AutoCAD. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and bring up any set of drawings, really. Let's bring up a set of drawings. This is a set of drawings that I already have brought up. So I'm going to go ahead and close it just so you can see the process. But essentially, when you bring up AutoCAD for the first time, so AutoCAD's completely closed. When you bring up AutoCAD for the first time, it's going to take a minute to load. So let's go ahead and give it that minute to load, literally. Sometimes it'll pop up a little bit quicker, sometimes it won't. It just depends on your computer. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up one of the last set of drawings that we worked on. Okay. The next thing we want to do very carefully before we forget, before we make any modifications, this is very, very, very important. You want to save as. Okay, save as. So you're going to create a copy of this and just basically rename it so you're not modifying the original one. This is extremely important, okay? Because this job is for the job that we're currently drawing is for the same client, I'm just going to leave the end part, which is Easy Wall Wally. That's the name of his company. We're going to delete everything else and we're going to rename it. We're going to call it the name of the job that we're currently working on, which is Grand Living at Riverstone. Okay. Enter. All right. Now we're still going to have all this information here from the previous job that we don't really need it here. I mean, sometimes sometimes you can find a job that we're just repeating, or the profiles are the same, or blah blah blah. But in this case, none of this is going to be useful to us. So we're just going to go ahead and select it very carefully and delete. We are not going to delete any of this. Do not delete any of this. This here needs to stay. Okay, so we're going to pan over and we're going to go ahead and zoom in. And we're going to go ahead and essentially start our drawings, right? This is what we want to do. So looking at our profile, we're essentially just going to copy the profile from the sheet that we were just looking at here on Plan Swift. Okay, this is on our other monitor. We're going to copy this. Okay, and what I mean by that is that, I mean a two-dimensional drawing. So what we have is we have 5.5 inches plus 2 1/8. It's 2 5/16. Don't pay any attention to this. I'm just referencing this. So 2 5/16. Okay. So 3/4. All right, so starting from the bottom, we go 7 5/16. In decimals, I'm going to get you a calculator because it's probably easier, the decimal calculator, because it's easier to do it that way. You take 7 5/16 inches and you enter it in decimals. So that would be 7.325. And yeah, it's pretty small. You see how it's small? We were like out here. So you want to zoom in on that. All right. That's the bottom. Now we're going to draw up. And you can get the dimensions. Again, you can get these dimensions off of what we're looking at on Plan Swift. So over here, if we look at it, we'll look at Plan Swift. You can see the dimension that I just drew on the bottom from here to here is that dimension that I just put in, right? It's this dimension plus that dimension. Now we want, and I drew it from here to here, so we want to draw this back dimension, so we're going to have to add these up, this dimension and this dimension. So it's 5 inches, 5 inches and 1/8 plus half an inch is 5 5/8. So in decimals, that's 5.625, right? That's the total dimension from here all the way up to here, essentially, here to here. So we're gonna place the cruiser in the direction that we want the line to go, which is this way, up. And we're gonna type in our dimension, 5.625, enter. That gives us our dimension on the back side. What's next? Well, yeah, you guessed it. Let's go back to plan swift here. We got a straight line on the top. It's 2 1/8. Okay. So we just put the cruiser in the direction we want our line to travel. 2 1/8, 2 inches and 1/8 in decimals is 2.125. See? It gives us our straight line there. Now, we have a little bit of a conundrum. The next line, the 5 1/2 inch that we have to draw to complete our shape, is sloped. So how do we do that? Well, I'll show you. It's sloped by half an inch. So what we're going to do essentially is we're going to hit escape, so we have a partial shape. Okay. The dimension in the front is 5 1/8. So we're going to hit our line button, and we're going to, starting from the front, we're going to type in 5 1/8. So 5 inches and 1/8 in decimals is 5.125. Enter. Escape. Okay, now we're going to hit the line button again, and we're going to draw a line from here to here. And guess what just happened? We just created that slope. Okay, so essentially, I mean, we just copied this shape. Linear, we're going to click on our lineal button up here, and we're going to check our dimension. So we're at 7 5/16, which is the total overall dimension from here to here. You add these two dimensions up, and that should be the dimension that we get. We can verify these dimensions as well. It's 5 1/8. Yeah, 5 1/8. And then the slope, lineal, you click from that part here to this part here. You drag over. So half an inch. Yep, half an inch slope. Okay, you're probably asking, oh my God, how do you make the letters smaller? Because these are very big. Yeah, they are. They seem big. And they probably are pretty big for, what we actually need them to represent. So what I'll show you is under annotations here, it's currently set to the dimension to dim 16. Okay, that is a little big. Typically for details like this that need to be accommodated into a smaller sheet, I'll put them at like dim 12. So annotations, dim 16. You click on that and you'll see a list of dimensions that I've used previously within this set. Dim 12 is a good one. So click on dim 12 and then we click on our dimensions, see how the dimensions got smaller and easier to manipulate. Okay, also our dimension here is a little whack. It's 5 1/2. It's supposed to be 5 1/2, but it's 5 3/16. 2 1/8. See how the measurement wants to overlap like that? So the way to fix that is to just select it and then manually drag it over, and then you can drag it back down. Okay, or you can select it, hover over the little blue dot where the text is at, move text only, or move with leader. Move with leader, you can actually bring it up a little bit. You'll have to play around with that yourself. So this dimension here, 5 3/16, what's the deal with that? Let's double check our overall dimension. Our overall dimension is 7 5/16. So, it's 5 inches and 1/2 sorry, 5 inch and 1/2 plus 2 inch and 1/8 equals 5. It's 7 5/8. My apologies. 7 5/8. So, what do we do? How do we fix the goof? Well, it's pretty easy to fix the goof. It's supposed to be 7 5/8. It's not. And the dimension that's flubbing this is this dimension here. This dimension is not correct because this dimension is not correct. So what is the difference? What is the difference between 7 5/16 and 7 5/8? Well, you take 7 5/8 and you reduce 7 inches and 5/16. So it's about 5/16 of an inch, meaning this is 5/16 of an inch too small. So how do we fix that without redrawing the whole thing? We use our stretch tool. You can either click it or you can type the command, strc stretch, see? But the command is up here. I typically don't type a whole lot. So we want to essentially stretch this part by 5/16 of an inch. So we select it in a way that we're only selecting the front half of the shape that we want to stretch. So we only want to stretch this part that's 5 3/16. So we select it, we right click to activate, we drag it in the direction that we want to stretch, and then we type in our dimension, which is 5/16 of an inch. You can type this in like this, 5/16, because it's already in smaller dimensional terms. But typically if it was larger, I would say, do it in inches or decimals because it's easier. But because it's already small, 5/16, you can type it that way. Now you type your dimension and you hit enter. Now what just happened? Well, it just stretched the dimension in the direction that we wanted to stretch it. So we've now fixed it. See, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 7 5/8, 7 5/8. Looks like we're gold. So now all of our dimensions look like they are correct. 5 5/8. Yeah. Okay. So there's our profile. Now the only thing that I see here is a little drip edge that we do not have incorporated into our piece. So let me show you how to do that. There's not a real science behind it. It's just for aesthetic purposes, really, on our side, because Jaime is going to make the adjustments on his side. This is what I do. I typically draw a triangle, okay? So what I do is I start with a line. And for shits and giggles, we'll just call it 1/4 of an inch. So that's 0.25. So there's my line. And then we're gonna start it in the middle. Right? We're gonna zoom in. We're gonna click in the middle. And we're gonna also make that 1/4 of an inch. That's 0.25. And enter. And then we're going to repeat that line. We're gonna start off onto the side, click in the center, click off onto the side, escape. And then we're going to select our middle line and we're going to delete it. All right, now we have a triangle. Whoop-dee. What do we do with that triangle? All right, grab your line tool, click on the front edge of that stone, drag your cruiser in the direction you want to draw that line. We want to draw that line 3/8 of an inch long. So you type in 3/8, enter. What does that do? That gives you a line overlapping the other line. You see it right there, because that's the line we just drew. It's 3/8 of an inch. And this is the line that we already had, which is the stone. So what are we doing here? Okay, so take your triangle, select it. Use your move tool. Select your triangle. Activate the tool by right clicking. Now left click on the front leading edge of the triangle. You see where I've clicked? Now you want to drag it over here to the line that we just drew. You don't want to put it here because the triangle and the text, and it says it's the midpoint of the line that we drew. We want it to be 3/8 of an inch from the face of this stone. So we click on the edge of that line. So now what just happened? We just placed this triangle 3/8 of an inch away from the face of the stone. Now you can take your, now what you can do is you can take your tool, your trim tool. You can either leave it like this or you can trim it. I like to trim it just because it looks more professional. Take your trim tool, click it, right click to activate. I apologize. Yeah, so, oh boy, let's do that again. So we're going to move the triangle over here to right there. Now, I'm not sure. Okay, that's why. So what you want to do is you want to just select the bottom line of the triangle. You can do this before you move the triangle if you want. As a matter of fact, let's just do it before you move the triangle because it seems to be less confusing. So select the bottom of your line, delete it. Now you move your triangle to where I told you to move it before. Not the center line, but the farthest edge over. Now you want to select the line that you drew, which was the 3/8 line, just to verify that it's there. So it's good. Don't erase it. You want to select, hit the escape button. Now you want to select your trim tool, right click to activate it, click on that line that's separating the triangle from the rest. Now you have a non-segregated line that separates your triangle, and that's an accurate representation of what a drip edge is. Okay? Now, we have our profile. Let's get to the nitty-gritty, which is the actual window. Okay? This is the profile. So we know we have several different types of windows. We have the W5s and W8s, we have the W4s and the W7s, we have W3s and W6s. Lucky for you, there's only, per the plans, there's 6 different types of windows. But lucky for you, they're mostly the same, so it reduces the quantity by half. So let's go ahead and draw the first window. The W5, W8 window are 7'6" wide. Okay? 7'6" wide. Now, there's several ways to do it. You can either, remember it, they overhang by 4 inches. So we have several ways of doing this. We can either add that to the dimension right away and just draw it immediately like that, or you can stretch it later. It's completely up to you. Just depends on how your drawing style is and how your mind works. But I'm going to show you how to drag it and stretch it. So we're going to say, we're going to take this profile, we want to draw it from the front. So what we want to do is, let me use this arrow here as an example. We want to draw this in a way that we are able to look at it from the front, like as if we were standing in front of that window. So the way we do that is, we know we want to draw a window that's 7'6" wide. So let's start with our line tool. And there's other ways of doing it. You can do it with your box tool too. Your rectangle tool, it's a little bit more advanced, but you can do it that way too. I mean, you're going to have to learn how to use it eventually. So you can click on your rectangle tool. You can kind of hover over the edge and then move over, and it'll provide you with a tracer line. You see that? What that does, it helps you keep things lined up. So you're going to start, let's just start it here. That's fine. Now once you start the box, specify, it says right there, specify other corner point, or, well, you can right click and then click on dimensions. Now, so it's going to ask you dimensions. Specify the length for the rectangle. Well, the length is going to be 7'6". You guessed it right. So 7'6" inches, oops, 7'6" inches is 90 inches. You're going to have to program your brain to work and or convert into inches from feet and feet into inches, and or have a calculator because it's very important. AutoCAD works better with inches because it's just easier. So 7'6" wide is 90 inches. So we're going to type in 90. All right, so it's 90 inches wide. Now we want to specify the width. Well, the width, what is the width? Well, the width is actually the height of the profile. So that's 5 and 5/8. So we're going to type in 5 and 5/8. How do we do that? Well, again, you're going to have to convert to decimals because it's just the easiest way. We're going to have to get you a calculator. Take 5 and 5/8 inches on the calculator and we convert it to decimals. So that's 5.625. And we hit enter. Whoa, what happened? It just drew that window for you with the same height. Now it's still stuck on here. How do you get it out? Okay, well, you click. So you just make sure that it's in the orientation that you want it to be in. I want it to be just like that. So I left click and it places the box and releases my tool. So now what do we have? Let's click on our measurement tool. We have a window seal that's 7'6" long. Okay. But remember what I told you, there's a 4-inch overhang on either side. So now what do we do? Well, you could have, let me move this over a little bit with our move tool so we have some room to work with. You could have either already added that to it, or like I said, you could do it the way we're doing it now, which is just stretching the window seal itself. Okay. So 7'6", it's got to be stretched 4 inches on either side. So technically it needs to be stretched 8 inches, right? It needs to be 8 inches longer. Cool beans. So we'll go to our stretch tool. We'll click here and we can stretch it 8 inches. Drag it in the direction you want to stretch it. Type the inches that you want to stretch it and click enter. Okay, so 7'6", 7'6" plus 8 inches, a 4-inch overhang on either side is 8'2". Drag that up a little bit. All right, so now what do we do? Well, we can't have, first of all, we're missing a little bit of detail here. We're looking at this from the front, but we're not seeing that slope that you have here on the profile. So how do we do that? Well, we want to explode this profile because right now, because you drew it as a box, it's one piece, right? So if you tried to use the offset tool, which I'm going to show you next, you want to offset it. So this offset here, it's a 1/2 inch slope, right? So 1/2 inch, so we'll measure it again. So yeah, it's a 1/2 inch slope. And we should have put that dimension on there previously, but well, now it's on there for better understanding. But yeah, it's a 1/2 inch slope. So we're not seeing that slope right now. What we need to do is we need to draw it. Okay. So the logical way to do that would be to use our offset tool. Let's say we're going to offset it by 1/2 inch. So you click offset. It's asking for a through dimension, which is 1/2 inch. So 0.5. We're going to click on this top and we're going to drag it down. But you see how it just like made another line all the way around? Well, that's because it's one solid piece. So what we do is we have to explode this first, make it into individual lines. So we use our explode tool, click on it, right click to activate. Now these are individual lines. See? All right. So we're going to use our offset tool again, and we're going to offset it by 1/2 inch, which is 0.5. Enter. Now you come over here, you click on the line you want to offset, and you drag it down in the direction that the offset is supposed to occur, which is down. So you can drag down like that. You're going to left click. That's going to set that line. You can hit escape. So now what are we looking at? We are now looking at this stone the way it would appear if we were standing in front of it, looking at it straight forward. All right, the next step is we can't make a stone that's 8'2" long. It's impossible. I mean, it's possible, but it would break in transportation. There's just so many reasons why we don't want to make a stone that's 8'2" long. It's harder to transport, it's harder to handle, it's harder to install. good rule of thumb says that you don't really want to make anything over 4 feet long, especially this particular size, because the skinnier and thinner it is and the longer it is, well, basic physics say that it's going to be easier to break. So what do we do? Well, logic would say that we need to break this into 2 pieces. And I will show you that in just a moment. So as a matter of fact, for something this small, we don't really even like it to go over 30 inches. But what we're going to do for this particular for this particular window seal, because of its length, we're going to break it into three even pieces. All right, so how do we break this into 3 even pieces? Well, we can do it manually. We can do it automatically. The easiest way to do it is going to be the method that I'm going to show you right now, which is technically not the correct method. Give me just a second. Because it doesn't add in your joint spacing. Okay. You know what? Let me just show you how to do it the right way, and that way you do it the right way. So to split this into 3 even pieces, it's a little more complicated than what you might think. Okay? And the reason why is because you have to reduce the amount of space that's in between the joints. So the way to do that is you take a measurement. Your overall measurement is 8'2". Okay. Now the joint spacing that we're going to give on these window seals is 3/8 of an inch. So if you take this one piece and you break it into 3 pieces, let's just say these are not measured, so these are just an example. You break it into 3 pieces, you're going to have 2 joints. And these joints are supposed to be 3/8 of an inch. Okay? So what do? How do you get that measurement to be exactly the same? Well, first of all, 3/8 of an inch, you're going to have 2 joints. So you take 3/8 of an inch and you times that by 2. That measurement is 3/4 of an inch. Okay? So there's 3/4 of an inch of too much space or too much material on the stone right now. So the way we figure this is we go 8'2" minus 3/4 of an inch, because that is the space of your joints. You have 2 joints that are 3/8 of an inch, times 2 is 3/4. So you take your full length, 8'2", you minus the 3/4 of an inch that you have to remove, okay, which gives you a dimension of 8'1¼ Now you divide that by 3, because we're going to divide it into 3 pieces. That gives you 2'8" and 7/16. Now you're going to add 3/8 of an inch to that, and I'll show you why in a minute. So you 2'8" and 7/16 plus 3/8 of an inch. So that means your new dimension is 2'8" and 13/16. Now if you converted that to inches, it would be 32 inches and 13/16. Okay? And to decimals, which is where we want to go with this, which is one of the reasons why you need to have one of these calculators, the dimension is 32.79167. Okay? So, what was the purpose of all that math? I'll show you. You take your offset tool and you start on one side, either end. It doesn't matter which end you start from. So you click your offset tool and it's asking you right there on your cruiser, specify an offset distance. Well, the offset distance that you are specifying is the dimension that we just came up with. So it's 32.79167. Enter. Now, it doesn't matter which side you start from. You click on the end line and you drag the cruiser in the direction that you want the line to go. Do not click yet. Don't left click yet, okay? Because then you're gonna have to click it again, again, again. Okay. What you're gonna do, so you can drag it right or left, right? So you want to drag it in the direction that you want to go. You're gonna right click and you're gonna click on multiple. What that does is that's telling the computer that you want to draw multiple lines with the same measurement. Okay, that's what AutoCAD is doing there. Now, drag the cruiser in the direction that you want to go, and you're going to left click. For each left click that you click, it's going to draw a new line with the specified dimension that we just specified. So I just clicked twice. So what happens? It drew a line here and it drew a line here. And if I were to click again, it would draw another line right there. You see it? And that was the whole purpose of those calculations, because it was taking that 3/8 of an inch out. If you measure the distance between this line and the stone, it's 3/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is what? What are we going to do now? Well, we've got our two lines. Do we want to release? Do we want to hit escape and release our cruiser? No. What we want to do is we want to, again, right click, and we're going to hit enter. Okay. Then we're going to click on this side and do the same thing. Drag it in the direction that we want to go. Left click, right click, enter. Now you can hit escape. Look at what we just did. We just created a window seal that's perfectly divided into 3 equal pieces, and it already has 3/8 of an inch in between each piece. If we put a lineal measurement on this from piece to piece, you will now see that these pieces are exactly identical. 2'8" and 7/16. Math is beautiful. To a certain extent. Now I'm just adjusting these dimensions a little bit farther up. That way we know what we're looking at here. So now what do we have? We have a window seal. We have a window seal. We have our profile. We have the window seal that we want to create. It looks beautiful. This is for the typical W5, W8 window. Now what you can do is you can make notations. This is where you're going to have to play around a little bit with the application. So you have two different types of text, single line and multi-text. I typically just use multi-text for everything. So click on your text tool. It's like so yeah, it's kind of whack. You're going to have to play with it. So right here we would say, okay, this is the typical W5 W8 windows. And yeah, it's really, when you click enter, it's really small. So this is the thing with AutoCAD, is that it draws everything in a specific scale. So the easiest way to fix that, it's so tiny, right? Okay, well, how do I fix that? Well, you double click it, you highlight it, you go up here, right? These are your different types of letters, etc., etc. Select it again. It's 1/8 of an inch right now. That's why you can't see it. So you're gonna play with your measurements. Type in 3, hit enter. Oh, it's gonna look huge. That's fine. Just click anywhere, and it'll give you it'll readjust. So yeah, 3-inch letters. Yeah, 3-inch letters look good to me right here. So that way you can take this and you can put it, you can label stuff. You can either put it above or below or whatever, but remember, this is for you only, okay? These labels are for you only. Actually, for this specific layout, I would say let's just put it over here. Typical 5. This is the typical W5, W8 windows. Now, we have more windows. We have 2 more types of windows. We have the 5-foot windows, and we have the 2'6" windows, which are W4, W7, W3, W6. Okay, so what are we gonna do? Well, we have 2 ways of doing this. We're not going to draw this again because it's the same profile. So really, what do we want to do? All of these other windows are going to be 2-piece and 1-piece windows, because the window that's 2'6", there's no real point in breaking that into 2 pieces because the pieces are going to be kind of small at that point. The 5-foot windows, we definitely would break into 2 pieces. So how do we do that? Well, they're a little bit simpler, definitely. So to prevent you from having to do this again, just copy, select, drag it down, okay, zoom in. Let's go ahead and delete your lines, actually delete the measurements here. I'm going to delete those. And go ahead and delete our joint lines too, because we no longer need those. All right, so what we have here is what? Well, we have, let's go ahead and drag this down just a hair more, just a hair. So we still have this window that's 8'2". Well, we don't need an 8'2" window. We need a window that's what? 5 foot plus the 4-inch overhang on either side, which would mean 5 foot plus 8 inches. So we need a window seal that's 5'8", not 8'2". So 5'8" minus 8'2" is what? It's 2'6". So this is 2'6" too long, right? So we'll go to our stretch tool, and we're just going to go ahead and stretch this. We're going to select this side. You can select this side too, whatever. I'm going to stretch it from one side. Select that. We're going to right click to activate the tool. We're going to left click to activate the stretching. I'm going to drag in the direction that we want it to stretch. So we're going to drag it in that direction. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and type in the dimension that we want to stretch it. We want to stretch it 2'6". Okay, 2'6", how many inches is that? Well, 2'6" is 30 inches. So we type in 30 inches, or 30, and we hit enter. Now what do we have? We have a window seal that's 5'8". We have a total dimension. Remember what I said, we're not going to split this into 3 pieces because, well, that would be stupid. Then the pieces would be too small. We're only going to split this into 2 pieces. So this is a little bit easier because there's not so much measurements. You're only putting a joint right in the middle. So what you would do is you go to your line tool, come back to your window seal. The triangle represents your midpoint. Like I said, the snaps are pretty convenient. So you just snap it to the center, enter, now you have your line. Well, kind of. You still have to remove that joint. You see how the space is 3/8 of an inch? Well, how do we get 3/8 of an inch here? Okay, well, easy. 3/8 of an inch divided by 2 is what? 3/16 of an inch. So it's 3/16 of an inch on either side. So in order to get a 3/8 joint perfectly in the middle, we have to reduce the stone by 3/16. 3/16 in decimals is 0.1875. It's a very important dimension. You'll be using it a lot. Okay, so take your offset tool, click that. It's asking you for an offset distance. It's 0.1875. Enter. You're going to click on that line. You're going to drag it to the left. Now you're going to click on that line again. That's in the middle, and you're going to drag it to the right. Enter. Now you're going to zoom in, and you're going to delete the line in the middle. Guess what you just did? You just created 2 even pieces. When you measure them, oops, sorry, measure from the center. Okay. And you have the proper joint in the middle. Easy peasy. Now we have one more window to do, so let's go ahead and go to the copy command. Just copy this down, right around there. Go ahead and delete that and delete the line in the middle. And we're just going to reduce this to the proper size. The next window is 2'6" plus 8 inches essentially, so it's going to be 3'2". So 3 feet 2 inches minus 5 feet 8 inches, it's 2'6". So we're going to reduce this by 2'6". So we're going to use our stretch tool, select one side, right click, drag in the direction that we want to reduce. We're going to reduce it by 2'6" inches, which is 30 inches. We're going to type in 30 and we're going to hit enter. So now we have a window seal. This is a singular window seal. I mean, even though I'd like to get it smaller, it would look stupid if we cut this into 2 pieces. It would just look bad, in my opinion. And that's going to be a lot of the designer's decision making. The designer's decision making is going to be a lot of hypothesis. It's going to be a lot of moments where you're thinking to yourself, how is this going to look like that? How many pieces do we want to break this into? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pieces that are too small look stupid. Pieces that are too big are not possible. Typically, like I said, we don't really like to get over 3 foot. Our preferred dimension is 30 inches. So just FYI. So it looks to me like we're done with our window seals. We're done with our layout, or rather we're done with our different dimensions. Let's go ahead and label these. We're going to go copy. I'm going to drag this down, and we're going to drag it down again. And what are we going to call this? We're going to call this typical W4, W7 windows, and this typical W3, W6 windows. Okay, so now we know what this is, now we know what this is, now we know what this is. These are for you only, okay? So, how do we lay this out and get it on a sheet for the client and for fabrication? Well, we go to our layout tab down here, and these are just sheets that are always going to be here. So you don't ever delete these, okay? You just reuse them. You reuse them and use them the way you need to use them. So let's zoom in here. This particular sheet, let's go ahead and click on the layout or the layer right here, line. We're going to go to the hidden viewport, and we're going to go ahead and click on this light bulb and turn that layer on. That way we can see our viewport layers. All right, so when I delete this line, I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I'm going to delete this line because I don't think it's a viewport. It could be, but I'm going to just go ahead and delete it. We have one viewport that's already here. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and stretch this over. Okay, this is a viewport. Now, you double click inside the viewport and it will highlight. You see how it got dark black? Now you can use your scroll wheel and zoom out. This is a window into the model layout that we were just working into, okay? See how this is what we just drew. So let's go ahead and zoom out and then zoom back in to see what we're trying to see here. You can also right click for pan and zoom. I do that a lot because it's a little bit more fine-tuned. So what you'll see here is that we're going to zoom in, but it looks like this one's a little too far down. So what you want to do is you can go to move. You can use all your same commands. I'm going to move this, right click. I'm going to move it up a little bit. That way they're a little bit closer together. Let's go ahead and move this one up a little bit. Now you got a bunch of, you double click to get out of the viewport. It doesn't matter how many times you hit escape. It's not going to get out. You've got to come over off the page and double click, and that'll take you out. And that'll allow you to zoom back out into this space again. Okay, that's very important. Don't ever zoom in too far like this and then double click on that viewport, because then literally you're going to be stuck there. There's a special command that will get you out, but I do not remember. I don't remember. So for safety reasons, don't ever zoom in like that and then get inside a viewport, because you're going to be literally screwed. Anyways, we got a bunch of stuff here. Let's just go ahead and get rid of these, or you can just select them and move them off the page if you don't want to delete them. I mean, we can always recreate them, but you know, I just prefer to drag them off if I'm not using them. They can always be because they can always be dragged back. All right. So it looks to me that this is still a little too far down. I'm gonna go ahead and double click. I'm gonna go ahead and move it up just a little bit. This is all visual perception now. Okay. We just want it to look good. We want it to look good for the client. This dimension or this profile here looks to be okay to me. It's probably going to appear a little what's the word? It's probably going to appear a little small when you print it out on a piece of paper. So the way we can adjust this or fix this is we can create its own viewport. If the architect complains or comes back and says, hey, I can't read it, it's too small, blah, 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 then we can fix this by creating its own viewport. And let me show you. I'll show you how to do that right now. So I drug this viewport from side to side. And well, the way we currently have it laid out, it looks pretty good. You still got to move some stuff around. But because it's all the same scale, this is literally the same size and it's kind of small. First, let's go ahead and move these and label all of our stuff. F8 will release your cruiser so that you can drag free. F8 again will lock it into ISO. Okay, and you see how that works. So we're going to drag this up. Okay, now we're going to copy that. We're going to say I'm in free plane right now, so I'm going to go ahead and lock it back into ISO by hitting F8. That way it can all be pretty lined up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this extra one down here that we don't need. Okay, now we got to relabel them. Okay, typical what? Typical W5 and W8 windows. Copy that. Now, click OK. And the text looks pretty good there. It doesn't look too big. If you wanted to make it a little bit smaller, you could by using text options, but it's pretty good. So we'll just leave it the way it is. Now, what we just adjusted was the name. We didn't adjust this, the number or this down here. Let's get into that. So when you double click it, you're going to change the name to what we just changed it to. You hit enter. Each one of these is information that needs to be changed. This is the view number. So it's view number 1. Considering it's the first one, I would say that's good to leave it as 1. Okay, or we could actually call this 1 and we could call this 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call this 2, enter, and it'll switch down to the next one. NTS, so this is what it's actually to change. NTS stands for not to scale. Typically speaking, all of your drawings will be not to scale. So it's not an accurate representation to scale and you cannot scale them. So that typically never changes. What changes is this information here where it says X57 ACM required. So what that means is how many X57 or X10, whatever. ACM stands for assemblies. And then obviously REQD is the abbreviation for required. So what that means to Jaime is that he's going to make, let's just say it's 50 ACMs required. He's going to make 50 the way it's drawn. So it's actually going to be 50, it's going to be 50 windows. It's going to be more pieces than that because there's 3 pieces per window. That's why we have ACM, assembly. It's an assembly, not just a piece, because one window requires 3 pieces. And you can get the hang, you'll get the hang of that. So let's talk quantities. How many pieces, how many W5, W8 windows do we have? Well, to find that out, we got to go back to Ta-da! Plan Swift, our good old friend. Estimating. Gee, I wonder why we counted all these windows so that we would have it for later. So W5 and W8. So we have 12 W5s and we have 21 W8s. Let's go ahead and minimize that. So that's a total of 33. So we're going to have 33 ACMs required, 33 assemblies. Okay, we're going to click OK. So now we just change all that information. So so that we're not confused about what we're doing here. Same thing, profile. Right. TYP stands for typical profile. I'm going to call this one number 1. There's no pieces, it's just not to scale. Okay, now we click on OK. All right, that way it makes more sense. So we got number 1, which is our typical profile. Okay, number 2, which is typical Windows W5 and W8, and there's 33 assemblies required. Now the next one. Okay, double click. What are we doing here? Typical what? Typical W4 and W7 Windows. Enter. Well, what's the value? Is it 1? Is it 2? No, it's going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, not to scale. That is correct. Let's just scroll over here to ACMs required. How many ACMs do we need? 57? No, we don't need 57. So let's go back to Plan View, or Plan Swift, sorry. And let's look at our W7, W4 windows. So we have 11 and 12. So 11 and 12, that's 23. Tab back. So we are going to need 23 assemblies. Ta-da. Okay. Next, we have typical what? Typical W3, W6, W3, and W6 Windows. Enter. All right, what's this? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you guessed it. It's 4. All right, not to scale, that's correct. How many ACMs, how many assemblies do we need? Not 57, certainly. Let's go back to Plan Swift. All right, W3 and W6 Windows, we need 6. There's only 6 of those. Okay, 6 ACMs required. Click on OK. All right, so what have we done here? We have, for all intents and purposes, it looks like we've completed a sheet. Not yet. We still have to edit some things. This is our sheet number. Page number should always match our sheet number for the most part. So it's page 1, but it's also going to be CS1.1. Okay, and then the next sheet is page 2, but the actual sheet number is CS1.2. That's right, for page 2. All right, so we've done our drawings. Everything looks good. We've labeled our stuff. We need to change this label. Okay. Typical cast stone or CS surrounds. No, it's not accurate for what we're doing here. So this is actually going to be typical window seals. And that's probably a pretty good accurate name to put on the shop drawings. And you don't really need to go into more detail than that, really, because that's really what this is. These are just typical window seals. And each individual window seal itself has been labeled to indicate where they go. Okay? And yep, you guessed it, it's also not to scale. Okay? Now, revisions, you don't really touch this unless there actually has been revisions. So we won't mess with that right now. The date is going to be the date that you actually draw the drawings. Okay, we're going to change that. The approved color is going to be the color that they approved. In this case, I believe it was 4-ounce buff. But you can always verify that with me and or Fernando. Project number. The project number, what I've been doing is just using the date, but backwards, essentially. So the project number for this would be 2021, and then it would be 414. So 2021 414. And that is the project number that you will use on all of the pages that you create for this project from now going forth. I apologize. Drawn by, if you are drawing the drawings, your initials will be there, and then obviously checked by would be my initials if I'm the one checking the drawings. Project name. Well, again, the name of this project is called Grand Living at Riverstone. Oops, I can't spell. Okay. Address. The address is important. Typically, you can get the address from, yeah, you guessed it. You can get the address from the set of plans, typically. And in this particular situation, yeah, here we go. Addresses are generally found on the plans. So let's go ahead and do this. 4828, go to addresses 4828, LJ Parkway. That's Sugar Land, Texas. We don't have to put Sugar Land, Texas. We can just put the zip code. 77479. 77479. Okay. Now these are, you can drag and freely move these. If you just select them and then kind of like click and drag, you can move these to get them to line up better if you want. If some of them seem a little like that there, I mean, it looks like it was overlapped. There was another one on top of it. So, you can always move these around a little bit if you feel like you need to make some corrections, like if it's out of whack. The installing contractor in this case is Easy Wall, so that is right. And you can also always get that information from one of us at the office. All right, Innovative Cast Stone, that is us, and that does not change. That's pretty much all going to stay the same. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and just add our new mailing address, because I would prefer a mailing address on there, except for and not necessarily our physical address. I don't like the idea of people just showing up whenever they feel like they want to. But now that I've added it to this sheet, you can just copy paste it whenever you want. And that's typically how we do it anyways. Oops. Oh man, I forget. Sorry. I forget that you can't copy, close, and then paste. You have to copy, paste, and then close. Okay. Whoop. Okay. All right. Now our address has been changed. Okay. So, one last thing to do on this page is how do we get this viewport line to go away? Because that will print like that and it's going to look bad. So what do? We go back up here to our layers. Okay, we're going to click on that. Our default layer should always be line. That's it. It's just line. So when you're drawing things, you always want to make sure that when you're drawing stuff, you're always on this default layer. All of this is drawn in the default line layer. Okay. This is also, you guessed it, in the line layer. Now you could change this layer to something called, you can change it to anything. I mean, you can this is basically just like Adobe. You can make your own layers. You can take layer 1, for example, and relabel it if you'd like to, and just call it hidden text. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the advantage to that is the same thing with Adobe. You can click on hidden text, for example, and hide that layer, and then this would go away. Okay. Right now we don't have to worry about it because it's off to the side. You can't see it through the viewport, so that's fine. You can be strategic like that. But how do we get rid of this? Well, the viewports, I always place them in their own layer called hidden viewport. Okay. So let's just say you wanted to draw a new layer. Your default layer is always line. Let me show you how we would zoom in on this too. So technically speaking, we would go to, I believe it'd be layout. We would go to the layout at the top and we would click on, you guessed it, layout viewports. We would click on the rectangle. Let's say we wanted to make a viewport right here. Boom. And you're going to double click that viewport and you're going to zoom in. You're going to right click and you can click on zoom and you can like do a little bit. You see how that works, and click out, and that way you can have a bigger profile and it's easier to see. So in many instances it would look better to do that. So, and that's cool, we can do that. But now we got a problem. Well, we got this profile over here that's part of the same viewport. Now we got this one here. So how do we handle all this crap? Well, there's a couple ways to do it. You can either take this viewport and shorten it up, literally, just to only show this. And now you have a clean space over here where you can have this viewport individually by itself. Ta-da! Cool beans, right? All right, but now we still have a problem. You have a viewport here and a viewport here. Okay, well, under normal circumstances, you would go to line, you would go to the hidden viewport, and you would turn off the light bulb. Boom. Well, it made that one go away, but not this one, because you drew this one on the current layer being line. So the simple solution is, yeah, you guessed it, probably just like Adobe. You select the viewport, you go up to your layer, and you would change that to the hidden viewport layer. And it's going to warn you, hey, whoa, one or more objects have been moved, frozen, or the layer's been turned off. And that's fine. Just click on close. But now that box is gone. So everything on this sheet is ready to go. It's been labeled, it's been dated, everything looks good, it's been laid out, you have your quantities. Your viewports are hidden. It looks good to me. So the next step is click on save. And I apologize if I didn't say this before, but you definitely want to be clicking on your save button, which is over here. It's a very small icon. You want to be clicking on that at least every 10 to 15 minutes. It's very tragically happened to me in the past where AutoCAD has crashed and did not save like the past 2 or 3 hours worth of work. It's supposed to auto save every 10 to 15 minutes, but sometimes it doesn't. And it's very, very disheartening when that happens. So just make sure you're occasionally hitting the save button, every 10 to 15 minutes. That way nothing bad happens. The only thing that I'm going to say is that we're going to add one more dimension here. And that's the dimension here on the face, because even though we do have the dimension here, we don't know what this dimension here is. So let's go back to our model view. I'm going to zoom in. And now we are going to click on our lineal tool. I'm going to click, click, click. All right, I'm going to zoom out. Let's go back to our layout. Oh, there you go. It's beautiful. So now what do we do with this? Well, if the only thing that we were drawing was the window seal, then technically this job would be ready to print and send to the client for approval. So we're just going to imagine that that's the case for this job, that this job only consists of the window seals. In all reality, that's not true, because you know that we still have a bunch of other stuff to do, like a dumpster surround and the fancy column bases and things like that you saw on the plans. Also, there's more water table and stuff that needs to be done too, but I'm just trying to give you an example here. All right, so this is ready to go. Let's just imagine that this was the entire job. You're going to click on, obviously, save. You're going to click on print. You're going to print this to a PDF, and the rest is history, man. I mean, Bluebeam PDF. You're going to click from corner to corner, right? I apologize. Let me go back. So you're going to click on print. Make sure the PDF printer is selected. Monochrome is always ideal. Okay, under the pattern. That's where you really want to be, is monochrome, black and white. Window, you're going to click on window and you're going to select the sheet, corner to corner. Fit to paper, you can preview, and that's how that sheet is going to come out of the printer. Looks good. Now you can click on plot and save the PDF and move on. Okay, so I think that concludes our lesson for today and gives you a pretty good area to start with. Until tomorrow.